Hi friends, I'm Joe Hopkins, and this is 5 Minutes to Make Sense of the Bible. This week, we're focusing on 2 Samuel chapters 9 through 14, plus Psalm 51. This short reflection is especially meant for folks who are reading the books of Samuel as part of the Life and Times of King David reading program of Streetsville United Church. But even if you're not participating in the program, please listen on. A trigger warning is appropriate for this week. The stories and reflection questions mention sexual violence. Maybe skip this one if you are sensitive to such topics. This week we begin with the heartwarming story of King David showing compassion for the one remaining male descendant of King Saul, a paraplegic man named Mephibosheth. Easy for me to say. As an act of honoring the family of Israel's first king, David grants land to Mephibosheth's family and allows him to have dinner at the royal table each day. Then David tries to show honor for the recently deceased king of the Ammonites of modern-day Jordan, but the statecraft goes terribly wrong. The Ammonites ally with mercenaries from modern-day Syria, and they go to war with the Israelites. Yet David and his army defeat the combined armies and put the fear of God into the hearts of the people on the Israelites' eastern border. But maybe it was King David who really needed a renewed fear of God. While the Israelite army was fighting the Ammonites, David has an affair with Bathsheba, who is married to one of David's soldiers, and David gets her pregnant. David then tries to cover up the affair by bringing Bathsheba's husband back to her in the hopes that they would have sex, and then everyone would think that the baby belonged to Bathsheba's husband. When that doesn't work, David arranges for Bathsheba's husband to be killed in battle, and so he is. David promptly and shamelessly marries Bathsheba. David thinks he's gotten away with the sordid affair, but it didn't escape God's attention. So God sends the prophet Nathan to David, and he tells David a story about a corrupt rich man who took the one and only sheep that a poor man owned. Very ironically, David is outraged and demands to know the identity of the rich man, to which Nathan responds, "You are the man." Nathan further chastises David, and David repents. But as punishment for David's sin, God causes David and Bathsheba's child to die. Let's take a brief break from the books of Samuel to flip to Psalm 51, which is attributed to David as a prayer of repentance for his sinful affair with Bathsheba. You might also recognize it as a reading that we often hear on Ash Wednesday. Back to David. David and Bathsheba soon have another child together, and you might have heard of him. The name of David and Bathsheba's first surviving child is Solomon. Now David has a lot of sons and daughters by this point, of various ages, some of whom are already adults, most of whom have different mothers. And one of David's sons, his firstborn, Amnon, fell in love, or rather fell in lust, with one of David's daughters, Tamar. Amnon arranged to be alone with his sister Tamar, and then he raped her. But Tamar's brother, Absalom, another one of David's sons, wanted vengeance for his sister's rape, but King David refused to punish his son Amnon. Absalom, however, waited a full 2 years before he arranged for the revenge killing of Amnon. That's cold enough that the Klingons of Star Trek would be proud of him. Absalom then hides for a while near Bethlehem, David's hometown, and eventually the commander of David's army convinces David to allow Absalom back to Jerusalem. But, maybe because he fears his son, David doesn't allow Absalom into the royal palace. Our reading ends with Absalom setting fire to his neighbor's barley field to catch David's attention, which it does, and David brings Absalom into his presence and reconciles with him, at least for now. Are you reflecting yet? Here are some questions to help with that. 1. What modern examples of statecraft have gone terribly wrong, like David's foreign delegation to the Ammonites? How much do you trust orderly negotiations versus military might? 2. What do you make of the different sides of King David? Compassionate to some, ruthless to others, shameless at times, repentant at other times. How do you relate to the multifaceted personality of David? And 3, what similarities do you see between the stories of sexual violence in the books of Samuel and contemporary stories of sexual violence? So there, 5 minutes to make sense of the Bible. I hope that you'll continue to read the rest of the books of Samuel and notice some details that pique your curiosity. God often tries to catch our attention by piquing our curiosity. And as good as reading the Bible alone is, please remember that we make the most sense of the Bible when we read the Bible together. Peace, friends.